going on, my friends? SeanPierceJohnson here, and I am so excited to show you what we have on the stompin' block for this week's episode of Stompbox Saturday. It is the Toxic Fuzz by Retrohead FX out of Argentina. Now, a few months ago, I spent some time browsing effects database to see what was out there worldwide in the pedal world that I didn't know about, and Retrohead is one of the top of the pops finds that I have come across. These guys are doing something really incredible. Their pedals have a very similar platform, similar kind of design aesthetic. Everything is hyper tweakable and everything is right there on the face of the pedal for you to custom sculpt a sound that you want. I have to say a huge thank you to the guys for sending the package. We've been emailing for a few weeks and trying to figure out the best way to get a pedal from Argentina to California. Import costs are high, so I have to say a big thank you to them because I am having a lot of fun with this pedal. We need to get down to the pedal, so let's throw the pedal up on the screen and take a look at what these controls are and how they're going to get us our tone. At first glance, this can seem kind of intimidating with 8 knobs and 3 different toggle switches. But trust me when I say, once you start messing around with them and you start understanding the relationships of the knobs and how they affect the overall tone, you'll just find yourself sitting back, turning a knob, and listening to get your tone. So let's take a look at the knobs. We have fine, pre, gain, and volume. Now I point out the black knobs first because these are going to be your overall pre and post gain structure. Fine, pre, and gain have direct relationships with one another to affect the amount of saturation that you get from the fuzz tone. And of course, volume setting your output volume. You have voltage and feedback, which are going to essentially affect the way that the fuzz behaves. You can have a fuzz that sustains out like crazy, or you have a fuzz that's a little bit more sputtery, a little bit more vintage sounding and bordering on sort of a kind of a Velcro-y kind of fuzz. It's a very cool thing. And then you have 2 controls for the tone of the fuzz. You have a tone knob, which is essentially going to act as the high-end control, and then a fat control, which allows you to dial in a certain amount of fatness and girth so you can get a tiny thin sound or a big wide fuzz sound. Now, the 3-position toggle switches underneath the knobs kind of expand upon what the knobs do. You have a 3-position toggle switch for boost, 3-position toggle switch for cut, and a 3-position toggle switch for comp. Now, the boost is basically center is off. You have 2 different points of boost, and we'll take a listen to those when we get to it. Cut, center is going to be off, and then you have 2 different frequency cuts, which usually will be one more of like a low cut and one more of a high cut, and then 3 different positions of compression. In the center, it's off. In the left, you have rock clipping. That's what the instruction manual will say. And then you have another clipping section called fuzz clipping. So, with all of that, there's a lot to cover on this pedal, and we've talked enough already. It's time to hear this thing. So for the next little bit, I'm just going to be quiet and start playing and turning knobs, and you can hear the different effects that the knobs have on each other. Now, the setup's a little different today for a very specific reason. We have the Les Paul going into the Toxic Fuzz. Now, instead of the Reverb 100, I've gone with the Carvin X1 preamp, which I'm running into the power amp of the Reverb 100. I'm doing that because, 1, it's a great clean platform and takes pedals incredibly well, and 2, because it has a bright switch on the clean channel, and I find that amps that have a bright switch engaged don't often make for pleasing fuzz tones. I'll show you the results of that in a little bit, but for now, let's hear the clean tone and get to what these knobs actually do. Now let me show you what I was talking about earlier about using fuzzes in front of an amp with a bright switch. I typically find that amps like a twin reverb or really any sort of Fender-based circuit with a bright switch on it typically doesn't take fuzz very well. But the Toxic, because of its level of flexibility, for some reason just really seems to do well in front of both just regular amp clean channels and then amps that have a bright switch engaged on it. my friends, is the Toxic Fuzz from Retrohead FX. Probably one of the coolest fuzz pedals I have run across since, well, the last cool fuzz pedal that I've run across. I've seemed to be getting a lot of fuzz stuff in lately, and this one certainly takes the cake for the most tweakable. Trust me when I say, it looks intimidating at first, but once you really start hearing the relationships of the knobs, you'll find yourself just turning them, strumming a chord, and seeing how that works. You might play a lick or two, you'll turn another knob. Eventually, you'll come to a point where you find something that really speaks to you, and you won't want to leave from that one setting for a very, very long time. The inclusion of 12 different sample settings for you to try, I mean, we barely scratch the surface of some of the tones that you can get out of the Toxic Fuzz. But I felt, hey, it's a fuzz. We gotta go for big, we gotta go for massive, we gotta go for stinging. That's what we need to do. And quite frankly, just as a fuzz, and not even getting into some of the other things that it can do, this one is quite a pedal, and I think it is definitely A+ winner for me. Staying in the collection, staying with me, how am I gonna work it into the rig? I have no idea. I have to say a huge thank you again to the crew at Retrohead for working out how to get this to me. I know they're a small company, so if you'd like to throw them some support and place an order for one of their pedals today, their website will be in the description below. And I would love to know what you thought of the Toxic Fuzz and if you'd like to see more from these guys. If so, please do leave a comment below in the comments section, and do click that subscribe button when you see it. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next episode of Stompbox Saturday. As always, my friends, I love having you spend your time with me. I can't thank you enough. And until next time, I'm SeanPierceJohnson, and I wish you all great tone and happy stomping. Cheers.